So the first three kits are the Boston Fern kit, the Maidenhair Fern kit and the Blue Star Fern kit. So the Blue Star Fern kit comes in this gorgeous kind of like a dove, soft grey, ribbed terracotta pot and matching saucer in a really lovely kind of versatile size of 14 centimetres. The Maidenhair Fern comes in this sort of crown shaped, slightly taller terracotta pot. It's a really popular kit that we used for the lavender in the summer. Really popular pot style for the lavender. So we brought it back for September. So that's for the Maidenhair. And then the Boston is a slightly larger 16 centimetre pot. Again, a really good size pot for indoors. And that's all sort of beautifully scalloped. And yeah, another bestseller. So I'm going to plant up the Maidenhair because basically it's exactly the same for all of the ferns. There's one sort of tip for the Maidenhair that's slightly sort of more advanced, I guess, that I would advise you to do if you've ordered this kit. So I'm going to pop that one up and then I'm going to give you all the care tips and it's exactly the same. So you just sort of replicate it depending on which fern you have. So in your kits you will receive your pots, your plant, your gravel, your compost and your 2 different types of moss. They will all be bagged up in lovely brown bags and sort of, you know, I would say just the quantity you need, but probably realistically knowing us, probably a bit more generous, so you probably will have stuff left over. I hate the thought of people not having enough, so we always overfill the bags, but hopefully you can use your moss for something else and whatnot. Okay, so let's begin. So adding in the gravel to the pot once it's on the saucer because there is a hole in the sauce in the pot. So add in all the gravel that's in your brown paper bag. The purpose of it is just to add drainage. It means that your plant's roots aren't sat in water for prolonged periods of time, which means that they're less likely to experience root rot, which will kill them. Okay, so added in our gravel, and then I'm just going to see how far down I want the plant to go. So you want it to sit sort of, I'd say, you know, 1 or 2 centimetres below the kind of rim of the pot, so you can add in your moss. It also means that when you water, the water doesn't sort of run over the sides, it runs and downwards, so that then the whole sort of root system gets a nice drink. I'm just going to add in a little bit, sort of just a handful of compost, and again you do exactly the same for these two. And then going to take my fern really gently for the Maidenhair. So the Boston and the Blue Star, you know, you don't have to be quite so gentle. With the Maidenhair, it's more delicate and it doesn't love to be touched, which I'll tell you more about in a second. So I'm just really gently turning it upside down and I'm just taking it out. It's nice and damp, and then I'm just popping it gently in with sort of minimal touching. And then I'm just going to gently push down the compost, and you'll see you don't actually then need any compost on top. You can put a sprinkling if you want to, because there will be some left over in the bag, but yes, you probably don't necessarily need to. There's nothing wrong with putting in a little bit because it then gets those added nutrients from the peat-free compost that we use. So pop in a little bit, and then now you can add in your moss. So your moss, we have 2 different types. You have the sphagnum, which is this kind of dried 2-tone moss, and then you have the flat moss, which is more sort of like the woodland sort of looking one, and you'll have like twigs in there and the odd pine cone and whatnot. So then I'm just going to gently place the moss just on top of the compost, just to finish off the potting. Now, in terms of care for your ferns, you want to keep the soil damp at all times, and by damp I mean wet, damp, but not waterlogged. So you wouldn't want, if you lift that up, I wouldn't want it to be dripping wet. It just needs to be damp. So I would say in this weather for September, the weather we've got right now, well, it's 25 degrees today, but you know, it is getting cooler. I would say you're looking to be watering every kind of 4 or 5 days, maybe every once a week, and just see how you go. they will, you will be able to feel in the soil if it's dry, and if it is, just give it a nice drink. And then make sure when you've watered that your saucer isn't filled with water. If it is, tip the excess water out and pop it back on, and then you know that those roots aren't sitting in water for a prolonged period of time. So that's all you need to do for potting up. You just do the gravel, a little bit of compost, pop your plant in, add some compost on the top if there's room. In case of the Boston, you probably pop some compost around the sides, just making sure that all the space that's there is filled with the compost. And then add in your moss beautifully on top. Just take little bits and place it on top of the compost. So keeping the soil damp is one tip. The next tip is to keep it in sort of indirect sunlight. So what I mean by that is a direct source of sunlight would be a south-facing windowsill. So somewhere pretty hot, they're more likely to get scorched. So pop it somewhere like, well, to be honest, anywhere in the home that isn't a south-facing windowsill. So you can pop it on a kitchen table, you can pop it on a windowsill in a north, east, west facing windowsill. Absolutely fine. You can pop it in a bathroom that's got a window that's sort of maybe a bit dappled. That's absolutely fine. That's indirect light. So just anywhere in the home. It's so versatile, such a versatile plant to sort of have, but they just don't like to be scorched. What else? Oh, okay, so a really important tip, especially for the Maidenhair. I don't know if this is the case for the other two because I don't know if there's been research about it, but there definitely has been for this one. So the Maidenhair, as lovely as it looks, and as much as it's that tempting kind of texture that you want to put your hand through it, please don't. So Maidenhair don't react well to the natural oils on our hands. It makes the leaves go brown. And I would probably say the same for other ferns as well. I just don't think it's worth it sort of touching them too much because they are more likely to die, especially in the case of the Maidenhair. And then in terms of sort of like keeping your plant healthy and looking fresh, if you find that the leaves go brown, it's purely normal. As long as you can see that there are some tendrils in there, some little kind of new bits of growth, you know that it's happy, it's thriving. It's normal for there to be sort of little brown fronds. You can just remove those. It's purely just a case of kind of sunlight not getting in there. It's usually sort of deep into the plant. We obviously make sure it looks as healthy as possible when it leaves. But if you find that you want to take off any of the fronds when it arrives, that's absolutely fine, completely normal. Doesn't mean your fern is dying. It's just part of it, just when they don't get quite enough sunlight. So that's about it. Just keep the soil damp, indirect sunlight, try not to touch it too much, and yeah, that's it. Super easy. Anywhere in the home but south-facing windowsill. So that is your Boston fern kit, your Maidenhair fern kit, and your Blue Star fern kit.